Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few friends get together after having slaved very studiously for the past week, sculpting or painting our ideas. We will combine them together into a museum that could fill, into a gallery that could fill a museum. I am, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. We're starting a new set today, so no recaps. My story element is genre.
I have random insert.
I have something based on a book I'm reading.
So who should go first? Should I go first?
I think so, but I what do you think, Seth?
I'll let him do the genre first. Levi, go first.
Perfect. Okay, so the genre is allegory. Allegory is the representation of abstract ideas or principles by characters, figures, or events in a narrative, dramatic, or pictorial form. So it's set in an old-timey Western town, and every main character, any character that you bring up, has to be representative of a different emotion. And it doesn't mean that, like, anger can't experience sadness, but anger has to represent anger in how he reacts to most things, or she, whoever. That's the genre. And we need to, so it's a representation of abstract ideas. So Seth, how about you? What's your story element?
Okay, so that worked out a little bit better than I was expecting. I was like, oh man, this will go really great unless someone has something like genre or setting or something like that will be like, you're like, I've got genre. I'm thinking, oh, please don't be like sci-fi space. Don't be sci-fi space. I mean, not that might not work, but I've just in the back of my mind, don't be like this is like everything is electronics and computers basically, because it kind of goes against what I got here. Okay, so a little bit different book here. The book is a book by Jerry Smath called But No Elephants. It's a book about Grandma Tildy, and she is a busy little red hen. I mean, she's a person. I say red hen because like the little red hen story, she's always, cooking and storing food for the winter and chopping wood and, just a busy little bee. And the story revolves around the pet man coming by and selling her various pets that in turn help her with different tasks that she has. And each one kind of makes Grandma Tildy's life a little bit easier and a little less lonely. Anything from a canary to help her, give her a song to kind of brighten the mood. Beaver helps her cut the wood. Got a turtle.
I think I remember this one now.
Yeah, the turtle, he sells her a turtle that kind of carries her on her back to carry all her stuff home from the market. The rainy day, and the woodpecker helps her nail the roof down so it doesn't leak. And they all help her can for the winter. But each time, like, she buys a pet, it's like, but no elephants. I'll take the turtle, but no elephants. And I'll take the beaver, but no elephants. I'll take the canary, but no elephants. And it's a cute little story. I read it as growing up as a kid, and I read it to my kids, and it's pretty adorable. So anyways, the concept with this is technology, or like most technology, it kind of fits for it to be Western. I mean, so it kind of fits in that, everybody, could ride horses or some kind of animal. But like everything, like technology as we know it is all like trained animals. So kind of in this sense, like, a roofer would have like, these woodpeckers or some kind of animal that has like a hammer face. And they're trained to, loggers are just like, people have trained beavers, and, they kind of cut the wood down and limb it all up and, kind of do all the work. Or like instead of cranes, it's, elephants, and, not that it has to be these animals particularly, but, vehicles, it's like, let's take the turtle for a little spin, so hop on, family. You got this, giant tortoise thing, wheels you up and down the streets. And, instead of like records and like music, it's, you get out different canary birds that are trained to sing like different
or whole choirs of canary birds.
Yeah, like different, birds that have been trained to sing different styles or different, songs that they know, and then you can like teach them to like, skip through their, allotted set or whatever. So that's kind of the thing. So all of the, most of the, say the hard work or technical things that are being done are all some kind of creature or animal. So it's not like people don't have, tractors. They've got, elephants or a rhino or, that kind of have something that, tills the ground or.
I bet, so these animals, do they represent like different emotions? I can see like, like the cats would be disdain.
I was kind of thinking that this is kind of like an alternative. I'm not saying that it is an alternative history, but some people believe that Adam and Eve's their kind of their goal, like the end result goal, was for them to like uplift the animals,
right?
And enhance their consciousness until they've kind of reached a place, maybe not of sentience, but like at least of like higher intelligence. To just continue enjoying God's creation. So I can kind of see that as a history where the animals aren't like, we're not talking about talking beavers or anything, but people have rejected a lot of other ideas of industrialism because you don't need to build big things to move logs.
Yeah.
Because you have those huge horses and you have elephants, It's like you don't need to worry about certain aspects of life, right? Because like animals are kind of more partnered with humans.
When in the winter of '82, January, February, March, my parents lived in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is up in northwest Thailand in kind of the Golden Triangle as far as the heroin trade. But they're just jungle and a lot of, teak and mahogany and anyway, exotic timber. And what they would do is like families would be in the lumber trade for generations, and they would give a boy a baby elephant on his 10th birthday, and he would have to care for this baby elephant and raise it up, and they bond. And by the time the elephant is big enough to work for a living, the boy has grown, to young manhood. And then they spend about 30 years in a career in the lumber industry, going into the jungle and hauling these huge logs out of the jungle. And that's like their whole, their life is in it. And it's a very coveted position and very honored and revered,
Right.
And it's, like low impact. It doesn't, they take the timber, but there's none of this big machinery going in and clear cutting and
bulldoze to get roads and stuff like
that. Right.
Yeah.
These big elephants just, take the logs out of the jungle and leave the jungle pretty much the way it was. It's cool.
Are we expanding in a correct direction, Seth, on your idea?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool.
So
I guess we don't have to do a random insert. That's kind of the point, I guess, is to make it random. So what do we want our allegory to be? What are we trying to get across?
So that was my random insert?
No, I said random inserts are random. So I don't need to look at you next and be like, now give us your random insert.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
If you
want to tell me your random insert right now, that's fine.
No. Let's get after what the allegory is here.
We could have it. Okay. So the lesson that we could teach in this kid's story could be there is a job for everyone, right? Because if I remember correctly, but no elephants, the idea was that she didn't know if she'd have space, or she didn't know what an elephant would do for her. Is that how that went, Seth?
Okay. So, I mean, she lives in a tiny house. That was another concept. There was another concept out of the book I was trying to figure out. So kind of at the end. So this is kind of how, if no one has read the book, I didn't want to get to the end of the book and kind of reveal what it was. I kind of wanted people to read it, but whatever. I'll go ahead. Here's the spoiler. Winter is coming. All the animals have helped Grandma Tildy prepare for the winter in her tiny little house. The pet man comes one last time, and it's like the days got colder and colder, and Grandma Tildy put food in jars for the winter, and I don't like the cold, and she just then the pet man appeared and asked her if she wanted to buy an elephant, and he's the only animal left, and he has to leave before it snows. No elephants. And she went back to her work, and the pet man left, but the elephant stayed, and it started to snow. So basically the elephant stays. I mean, the pet man can't keep him, so the elephant stays, and he's just kind of pitiful. He's, out of all the creatures, he probably is the biggest, the strongest, and most capable. And this isn't in the book. This is my own kind of figuring on it. So he just kind of sits outside and looks pitiful until they finally feel bad enough for him and let him in. So of course, it's a tiny house. They squeeze him in. It's a picture book for kids. So it's, everything's got a cute little picture. And then it shows it's probably like a 10 by 10 house, and it's got them all in there. And the snow is just about up to the roof, and you can barely see through the windows. And of course, in the middle of the night, the elephant crashes through the floor because he's so large and the house is so old. However, having not done any of the work, the elephant basically eats them out of house and home. He eats all their food they prepared for the winter, and without having, let's say, pitched in anything. And so basically on the brink of freezing and starving to death, this is when finally the elephant feels bad and decides, yeah, they could have, but they ran out of firewood too. So, because it was a long, cold winter. But so the elephant, now feeling sorry that, pretty much, he did nothing to help but eat them out of house and home. So the elephant felt sorry, and he thought of a way to help. So he lifts the house up because he fell to the floor. So he his legs are sticking out of the bottom of the house, and he basically walks them all the way to the south where, there's no snow and it's warm, and it's basically like Florida. It's like sunny all the time, and, it's great. So kind of the other concept of that would be that, the largest, strongest, most capable creature basically sat around and acted pitiful until it was kind of the do or die before he pitched in and did anything to help. Even though, from the beginning, think of, the beaver could have cut wood, but how much more wood could have they hauled in if they had the elephant? How much, how much more capable could have they been if they had the elephant? And if the elephant was then willing to help, which then you see that the elephant isn't willing to help at first, and just kind of is pitiful, and then is brought in and eats all their food, having not done anything to have help prepare it or do anything. So that was the other concept of, either something in the story being where either the class of people or the people most capable of doing something are, consumed most of the time being pitiful until kind of the crux where it's do or die, and they get kind of forced into having to do the right thing and solve the issue.
I was kind of thinking maybe if we could do this kind of like a children's book, right? And so the problem is twofold. The problem is, on one side, our main character is really capable, right? They're very able to accomplish things. Maybe they're like kind of like a natural talent, but they're really lazy. It's kind of the whole thing where if nothing is a challenge, if you didn't have to work for anything and nothing is a challenge, then sometimes you can get kind of complacent.
Yeah, everything comes too easily for you.
Yeah, so then soon as there is a challenge, you just like fold up and die. Not literally, but you know what I mean? You just like fold up. That happens a lot to children who are like really smart at their younger years, and then they get into, it's like if you have a college level reading reading skill in high school. Wow, that's so crazy. But then as soon as you get to college, you just have a college level reading skill. And so does everyone else because you're in college now, So it's kind of like this guy or person who has excelled a lot in their younger life. I'm not saying it's a guy, but it's this person who's excelled a lot in their younger years, and then they're kind of like a one trick pony, They're like, people are starting to move on and they are having trouble committing. And maybe part of that has to do with the fact that they have always excelled at doing work, but they've never excelled at bonding with any animal in order to really accomplish things.
I have a slight idea here.
Okay.
So, and perhaps we can make more of who the hero is, or maybe this is, kind of making our hero or a character. He could be the hero, or he could just be, maybe he's the anti-hero, or maybe he's just a character. So he comes in, he's like kind of a wealthy, well-to-do kind of guy from the big city out east, where they have everything so easy, and, they're kind of farther advanced than, podunk, backwoods. This is Old West, so it's gonna, probably not wood.
Yeah, small town.
They're not
still.
He doesn't really fit in with like the small town people, but he's on a trip, and let's say there's like an unforeseen natural disaster that kind of starts at the beginning, where it kind of shakes this up, where they kind of lived up on I don't know if like they lived on like what would that be, like on an archipelago, but somewhere where it was like kind of hard, maybe not a valley, or maybe it's a valley, but this particular spot or region is kind of, after this disaster, is only accessible by basically getting across what is like a Grand Canyon. Well, if everyone just kind of, they use, elephants and giant tortoises for moving stuff around, and like no one out here knows what, engineering a bridge is. They don't know this stuff. And so
they don't need to. Yeah.
And they don't need to. They never have. So what I'm thinking is this hero, the character here, he's an engineer, but he's, the most capable, but see, he's so attached to like having it easy and how horrible this podunk little place is, and they don't have all like the amenities. They don't have the canaries that he can get access in, the big
he needs his
towns.
ice.
And,
yeah, he's got to have his
ice and his, the tortoises around here are really slow, and there's, but yet he's an engineer. He's, so he's the most capable, but for the most of the story, he's sitting around being pitiful. And I think if it's an allegory, he himself isn't necessarily, so this would be like some kind of tale where everybody around him are the allegory allegories that are teaching him these lessons. So really, I mean, if it's like he's the character and he's stuck in this realm where, you know, this chasm, there's a chasm that won't let him out of this reality that he's staying in, and he's kind of choosing to be pitiful and really pessimistic about the whole thing. I've been having different characters kind of show a different aspect where anger can help him accomplish a lot of different things. And so the character Anger, you know, he could be, you know, the you know, whatever character we want to put him as. And let's say there's different tasks that need done, and so then he kind of gets carried along all these other smaller tasks as, you know, time goes on, and you know, they're slowly kind of pulling him out of, maybe not out of his shell, but like he's, you know, stuck here, so he might as well lend a helping hand. And so if he goes out and helps, you know, the get lumber, well, you know, let's say whoever the lumber guy, maybe they're sadness. And so, you know, although sadness might empathize with him, it doesn't help, you know, the bigger problem.
I have a guy I want to add in here. I think he's kind of got a big scruffy beard, and he's got his hat is kind of like misshapen, and he sits on a rocking chair out in front of the general store, and his name is Skeptic, and he's like he immediately labeled the guy from the big city as Tin Horn, and he's kind of does a running commentary, and he's kind of the narrator of the story, making comment and just always like the devil's advocate, and always kind of like a little bit off negative, and like choosing to see maybe less flattering motives in behind people's actions, and you know,
I like that.
I just call Skeptic, you know.
Yeah, he calls out. He, you know, if Anger is just kind of sulking, then he kind of just kind of cuts through and calls him out, and then makes Anger like blow up.
Anger. Yeah, then that whole point of Anger is motivating to get something accomplished, right? And so he has to tweak them to get it going.
Right. And I have like this kind of idea where at first it's really polarizing, where at first Anger is kind of seen maybe not as the bad guy, but definitely as the or maybe as the bad guy, you know. No one really likes Anger because he is always yelling. He always is trying to get stuff accomplished. He is prone to just outbursts, right? And it's like, it's also, if this is for kids, because I love this idea, it's also a lesson in like the appropriate place for every single emotion.
Yes.
You know, even for like loneliness, you know, even loneliness has like a place in the kind of spectrum of all of the people of this town, right?
Sure.
And it's only once the hero, Bartholomew, like kind of learns, because when in the big city, you have to like, you don't talk about it, and you have to like repress all of your feelings because people will take advantage of you and hurt you if they know that you might feel scared. So like certain emotions are really heavily regarded in the big city, you know, raucous joy, anger,
the thrill of victory, but not so much the agony of defeat.
Yeah. I don't know. I just have this idea that Bartholomew comes into the place being really, like you were saying, Seth, just really kind of like, I just want to get out. I just want all of the success and the power of the city to come and save me. But then also the realization that like everyone has a job. It doesn't matter what you're good at. You can perform a task, right? And you can find satisfaction in that, you know? So at first, everyone seems really simple. But then as he gets to know the people, you know, the guy who handles all the stable master for like the inn or whatever, you find out that he like makes these beautiful custom leatherwork saddles, and it's like this realization that like I thought that this emotion was kind of like a single one tone emotion. It was just either on or off, you know, but like there's gradients to this, you know, how people react with each other, how sometimes it's skeptic, what's his name, Skeptic?
Yeah.
The skeptic who gets anger riled up, right? And sometimes loneliness is the one who gets anger riled up, but sometimes it's loneliness that gets anger to calm down, you know? Sometimes they just let anger go off, you know? Sometimes, you know, I'm just saying the idea of teaching the fact that there's appropriate places for every emotion, and that if we learn what the emotions do to us and we learn what it means to experience them, we can move through those emotions and we can in fact use them for our good. That being like the the allegory. And so the idea of everyone has a job is not so that the engineer learns how to work with the woodpeckers to nail in the roof, even though that's what he does, you know. It's how this family of all these varying, you know, emotions come together to create content, the family of contentment, you know, how they can be content where they are, even though they have all of these mixed, you know, sub parts inside of them. What do you guys think?
I think that's really
for
cool.
a kid's book.
Yeah. You know how the concept of Wait It Gets Better is that we have these disparate story elements and we bring them together, and sometimes they fit together like a hand in glove and sometimes not so much. But I'm going to just bring what I had prepared, even though it seems not to fit at all, but it kind of does.
Okay.
So
let's hear it.
Yeah. As things were going along, you know, and Tildy was busy in the garden and Skeptic was pointing out what a useless, lazy tin horn Bartholomew was, and Compassion was telling him to cool his jets, and you know, things were going right along, right?
Yeah.
And this huge thing comes out of the sky. I mean, it's gigantic. This thing is as big as the whole town, and it just kind of comes in really fast, but then slows way down, and then very gently just settles down just outside of town.
Right.
And the side of this thing opens up, and a ramp comes down, and a guy comes down, walking on two legs, and looks like a person, and with them coming down is what looks like a horse, but they appear to be talking to each other. And out of the opening flies a bird and lands on the horse's back. And people are lining up like, what the, you know, and these people come in and he said they start talking. The man starts to talk, and he's got a device that makes his words understandable. And he just announces that we are the people. And that's how it translates, but it's what they call themselves. And they come on a ship, and the name of the ship is Vanguard. However, that sounds more ominous. That's just how it translates. It's more ominous than their actual motives, which are genuinely benign.
Right.
And this man's name is Curiosity.
Oh, shoot.
And he announced that we were flying by, and Order was the bird, big kind of a parrot-like bird. His name is Order, and he said he keeps things kind of organized on our vessel, and we come from a star very far away from you, and we're on a mission to find places in the universe where we can live, and there's very few planets like this one where you have atmosphere we can breathe, and the temperature is something that we can tolerate, and the gravity is within parameters that we can handle, and they're explaining that they're from another world, and their curiosity was piqued because their long-range scans showed that this town employed a very clear mix of different species working together, and that was what has characterized their world. And over the years, the dumb animals became smarter and smarter, and now they're just colleagues. But most worlds that they've encountered, there's sort of a hostility and a struggle for dominance, and oftentimes some of the species are relegated to a less than servant role, to the point where they're just exploited, and that's anathema to the people. But they were very the leader of their group was very curious about this civilization that where humans and animals seem to be collaborating with each other, and they just wanted to stop by to say hello. They don't plan to stay. They want to find. They don't want to disrupt.
Right. Whatever's going on here.
But they just want to stop by to say hello and satisfy their curiosity.
That's great. I love that. So how does the story end?
I think, well, first of all, they should have a big party to, you know, welcome the new guests.
Right.
You know, they probably have some kind of prime directive, so they're not going to help with the engineering.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking that maybe there was some kind of thing, some kind of darkness, whatever, that's just called, like, really kind of out in the open, just called adversity.
Yeah.
Right? And all of the emotions all tell Bartholomew that they've all tried to fight this adversity by themselves, and not to fight, but, you know, to confront this this adversity by themselves, and they'd all failed, and one of them mentions how when two of them were together, it seemed to have a little bit better go, but then it basically, what it requires is then Bartholomew's kind of engineering brain to figure out how each and every one of their special skills can kind of all be combined together in a really unique and interesting way, in order to do X, build the bridge, rescue the map they need in order to get out, whatever the kind of simplistic end goal is that requires all of them to, with Bartholomew's help, because the story is basically about Bartholomew and him learning how to balance his emotion, and teaching kids that, like, your emotions are they're important, right? But you can't just rely on one and only one. Seth, how am I doing? Are you jiving? Are you bipping and bopping and ducking and weaving with what I'm saying? Does this sound like a decent thing? I'm just trying to figure out, just as like a storyboard thing, what would be the final thing. He could be building a steam engine, he could be building an airplane, he could be building a helicopter, he could be building a mechanical horse, something that just requires basically the whole town to kind of all, and I don't know, part of me is thinking that he needs to move on from this place, that now that he's learned this, okay. Reed, what do you think about this, though? What do you think about he, at the end, takes the name Curiosity?
Ooh.
So basically, he's an engineer, right? He's an explorer. Yeah. And he, after having learned how to sort of, from curiosity, this explorer, from all these different emotions, learning, now he can go forth into the world in a healthy way, and he takes on the name Curiosity, and then, builds himself a mechanical horse or something. I'd say he still doesn't get an animal, because that animal thing was really for the town.
Yep.
But he kind of like can go forth kind of in a more healthy way, instead of being devoid of emotion like the other places have taught him to be. He's now kind of full of, and is kind of going forward in his own. What do you think about that, Seth?
I think that might help. One thing that might bring it together, I don't know if maybe if was it Skeptic, if he's kind of narrating, maybe at some point, I want to say, like, okay, so if he leaves at some point, somehow what he's taking away is the lesson that he learned, right? And so really that becomes himself. And so either Skeptic or him writes down kind of, so each little story where they help, let's say anger, or compassion or
loneliness,
or loneliness, something like this, that either has to overcome and see the good side and the bad side of it.
Right.
Either like writes it down in like a little journal and kind of leaves it with him.
Right.
Each time he kind of comes to an understanding of what this emotion is for, what this can accomplish for good, and what it can accomplish for evil, as kind of like okay, now he's kind of conquered this. And so then when order and curiosity show up, that shows that, one, to accomplish something, you have to bring order with curiosity, and then using, let's say, the things around you, in this case the people, their good traits, what they can accomplish, and how to stay away from the negative sides of these things, and organize them in an orderly way to be used in a curious manner to accomplish like a larger.
Yeah, I think that's good. I had the thought that Skeptic's wife is Hope.
Why not? Of course she is.
It's like, he's a skeptic and she's Hope, so they kind of balance each other out a little bit. I like that. I think that this is going to be a one-off story, though. I think that we've done this.
Yeah. The Vanguard moves on into the universe.
Yeah,
and they've made friends, and we'll stop by again, they said.
Yeah,
and I think,
ladies and gentlemen,
what, like you said, either makes his like flying horse or airplane, or some kind of like steam-powered airplane.
Right. My hot air balloon. There it is.
Hot air balloon. And because then he's able to rise above adversity.
Yeah, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Wait It Gets Better. This kids version of Wait It Gets Better. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like this story, I would like to hear about it. Let me know on waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com, or at me on Twitter at @getsbettercast. If you didn't like this story, I'd say we have a lot of other stories you can listen to. Those are really good. They're all really good. A couple of them I did not so good job on a couple of them, but most of them, they are very good. If you didn't like this story and you don't want to listen to another story, you just want to wait until we have a good story, I would say just wait. It gets better.